Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 1/4 percentage point on Thursday as policymakers took note of a job market that has generally eased while inflation continues to move toward the U.S. Central Bank's 2% target. The U.S. Central Bank explained economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. The rate-setting Federal Open Market Committee made the statement at the end of a 2-day policy meeting in which officials lowered the benchmark overnight interest rate to the 4.50 to 4.75% range as widely expected. The decision was unanimous. The Fed said risks to the job market and inflation were roughly in balance and that price pressures had made progress toward the Fed's objective. The U.S. Federal Reserve's Chair Jerome Powell says he will not resign if asked to by President-elect Donald Trump. Powell stresses a president does not have the power to fire or even demote him. On the campaign trail, Trump repeatedly criticized Powell, whom he appointed to run the central bank in 2017. Trump had claimed the Fed chair is working to favor Democrats and that he could do Powell's job better. Powell says the November 5th election results will have not affect the Fed's policy decisions in the near term.
We don't guess, we don't speculate, and we don't assume. Now, just in principle, it's possible that any administration's policies or policies put in place by Congress could have economic effects that over time that would matter for our pursuit of our dual mandate goals. So we, along with countless other factors, forecasts of those economic effects would be included in our models of the economy and would be taken into account through that channel.
After an initial post-election bounce, the stocks of Donald Trump's social media company take a hit. Trump Media and Technology Group closed down 22% Thursday amid increasing market scrutiny over its growth strategy and financial viability. Many shareholders and analysts are still uncertain about the platform's ability to compete with mainstream social media giants. Mortgage costs for Americans just hit a 4-month high. The average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage in the U.S. rose to 6.79%, the highest level since June, driven by rising Treasury yields. This rate hike could further slow the U.S. housing market, which has been cooling amid persistently high interest rates and elevated property prices. Economists are cautious about the Fed's next moves, with many pointing to market uncertainty and inflationary pressures that could influence rate decisions. Homeowners looking to refinance or buyers entering the market will be the most impacted. Canada's economy grew at a faster pace than previously reported, with new GDP figures showing 1.5% last year from 1.2% previously. Bloomberg reports yearly growth was revised to 4.2% in 2022 from 3.8%. In 2021, the economy grew 6% as it bounced back from the initial pandemic shock. It's higher than the previous estimate of 5.3%. The data suggests Canada's economic momentum in 2023 was stronger than first thought. It's more evidence of the country's resilience during the Bank of Canada's aggressive hiking cycle, in which the policy rate rose from 0.25% to 5% in less than a year and a half. Still in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he has already spoken.
I look forward to working with President Trump once again to strengthen North American economic opportunities for the middle class, to grow our economies in ways that make us competitive around the world, to protect North America from the many, many challenges that exist around the world. The world is actually even more difficult and more complicated than it was 4 years ago, and there's lots of work for us to do, and I'm looking forward to do it. On our side, we've been preparing for this. We're looking forward to doing this work.
Well, After Trump's victory in the U.S., bank regulators in the U.K. and Switzerland are reassessing their own rules. Swiss Finance Minister Karine Keller-Sutter says her country will monitor U.S. policy changes closely and could consider loosening some rules if the U.S. follows suit. Banks in the U.K. and Switzerland could see relief on capital requirements and mergers and acquisition limits as they look to remain competitive with U.S. firms. This move comes amid a wave of global financial regulatory changes since the 2008 crisis. Gold ETF demand has turned positive for 2024, with the World Gold Council reporting an increase in holdings amid market uncertainty. The council says gold-backed ETFs attracted $4.3 billion of inflows in October to lift collective holdings to 3,244 tons. After 3 years of outflows driven by high interest rates, the past 6 months have seen a marked reversal. Continued inflows and record gold prices lifted global assets under management to a month-end record of $286 billion in October. Demand was supported by North American and Asian flows. Analysts say the military escalation in the Middle East, along with reports of North Korean soldiers joining Russia in the Ukraine conflict, may have also driven increased demand for gold ETFs. Changpeng Zhao, known as CZ, the founder of Binance, is back in the spotlight, plotting the future of his crypto exchange empire after legal issues and recent high-profile trials. Bloomberg reports CZ's return marks a key moment for Binance as it navigates regulatory pressures worldwide. Crypto market observers will be watching closely as CZ positions Binance in a challenging crypto landscape. Analysts say Binance is focusing on compliance measures to restore investor trust. Coming up next, news in Philippine business and the economy. Stay on BNC and follow the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. Overseas Chinese Banking Corporation, or OCBC, has agreed to buy Barclays Wealth Management operations in Singapore and Hong Kong for $320 million. This is its second major private banking deal since 2009. Singapore's second biggest lender outbid DBS Group Holdings, which has been seen by some as the early favorite. Sources with knowledge of the matter told Reuters Singapore's banks have been keen to pick up wealth management assets put up for auction by Western banks as they retreat to focus on their own markets. OCBC said in a statement, with the purchase, the Bank of Singapore unit will see its assets under management rise by about a third to $73.3 billion, and its number of private bankers will climb by 88 to 400. The sale is part of a restructuring by Barclays' new chief executive, Jess Daly, and comes as several European banks rethink their Asian strategy due to pressure at home to cut costs. Nissan announced it will cut 9,000 jobs and lower its annual profit outlook by 70%, citing challenges in major global markets. Nissan says these cuts will focus on non-production roles and are part of efforts to regain profitability and increase competitiveness in the EV market. This move comes amid supply chain struggles, high material costs, and strong market competition, particularly in China, where Nissan faces headwinds from local competitors. The company is also in talks to review its EV strategy to strengthen its market position globally. Here at home, the Philippine government will continue to push for internal reforms to make sure the country is protected from external shocks. That assurance from NEDA Secretary General Arsenio Balisacan when asked whether he sees a need to revisit policies following the election victory of Donald Trump. Balisacan says the impact of another Trump presidency on the Philippines is too early to determine, but he acknowledges potential higher tariffs will negatively affect the global economy. The Philippines, he says, is seeking more free trade agreements with other countries to reduce its vulnerability to outside risks. The country's gross international reserves fall slightly in October. The GIR level settles at $112.43 billion versus the $112.71 billion recorded in end September. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas says the decrease mainly reflected the government's net foreign currency withdrawals from its deposits with the BSP to settle its foreign currency debt obligations and pay for various expenditures. The Asian Development Bank approves financing of up to $1.7 billion for the construction of an expressway around the country's largest lake. The 37.5-kilometer Laguna Lakeshore Road Network aims to provide a climate-resilient road link within the southern Manila Transport Corridor. It is expected to benefit some 3.47 million people residing along the lake and cut peak hour travel time between Taguig City and Calamba City by 25%. The ADB says its investment reflects its commitment to improve the Philippines' transport infrastructure. In more news, Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. presidential election has darkened the outlook for a strong deal at the COP29 climate summit next week. Climate negotiators say pressures is building on Europe and China to lead international progress in curbing planetary warming. Trump, who has called climate change a hoax, has said he plans to withdraw the U.S. from the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Agreement at the start of his second presidency, and his policy advisors have floated removing the U.S. from the underlying UN Framework Convention on Climate Change ratified by the U.S. Senate in 1992. Climate negotiators and observers preparing for the COP29 conference from November 11 to 22 in Baku, Azerbaijan, said Trump's decisive win over Vice President Kamala Harris in Tuesday's poll reduces the ability of countries to agree on a new global finance target or increase the pool of countries that should contribute. Those are goals for the summit. The EU and US had planned to push China and rich Gulf states to start paying into the UN climate funds. Countries are gathering in Busan, South Korea from November 25 to December 1 to finalize a treaty to reduce global plastic pollution. But across 5 very different countries, single-use plastic remains hugely popular.
The world produces around 400 million tons of plastic waste every year, much of which is thrown away after just a few minutes of use. This year, negotiators hope to sign the world's first binding treaty on plastic pollution that environmentalists hope will reduce production. But across much of the globe, single-use plastic remains hugely popular as a cheap and convenient option. In Thailand's Bangkok, cakes like these used to be wrapped in banana leaves, but cleaning them and checking them for tears became time-consuming.
ไม่สะดวกที่จะใช้ใบตองทั้งหมดไม่ทันด้วยหายากมากด้วย
This small shop uses at least 2 kilos of single-use plastic every day. Overall, Thailand produces 2 million tons of plastic waste a year. 11% of that goes uncollected, and it's burned, disposed of on land, or leaks into rivers and the ocean. Plastic would also be hard to give up for this vendor on Rio de Janeiro's Ipanema beach. He pays $1 for 20 cups, where he serves iced mate to beachgoers for a little under $2.
Né? Porque a gente não tem recurso maior, porque é de nosso próprio bolso, né? Por isso que a gente compra copo de plástico.
Bins along Rio's beaches receive about 130 tons of waste a day, but plastic is not separated. In fact, just 3% of Brazil's garbage is recycled annually. Plastic waste is also a major issue for Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos, regularly blocking sewers and evacuation routes. One significant source of pollution is water sachets. An estimated 60 million are discarded across Nigeria every day, according to the UN. Cheaper than water bottles, these sachets have become a necessity.
We have bowl for markets. That bowl, you cannot use them anyhow. Because of no clean way. You need to boil it before you can use them. You can use them cook. You cannot use them drink. Because of different sicknesses outside.
Since they appeared in the 1990s, water sachets have become a major pollutant across much of Africa. Lagos banned single-use plastic in January 2024, but with little impact so far. In Europe, different countries have introduced laws to combat plastic pollution, like in France, where items like straws and plastic cutlery have largely disappeared. Single-use plastic bags have been banned in France since 2016, but reusable, slightly thicker plastic ones are still allowed, as are compostable ones. In this Paris market, these bags remain stubbornly common.
Il y en a qui arrivent à me demander des sacs même en ayant un sac. Quand ils prennent des choses un peu plus lourdes, parce que c'est des sacs vraiment bio et très fins, donc je suis obligée d'en mettre plusieurs pour pouvoir contenir ce qu'il y a dedans, oui. Donc c'est pas du tout écologique en soi. Voilà.
An average vendor at this market will go through around 2,000 bags per week. Another sector where plastic remains omnipresent is the restaurant industry. In Dubai, this establishment usually receives more than 1,200 orders every day. In the desert metropolis of about 3.7 million, people rely heavily on home delivery for everything from petrol to coffee.
اغلب الاكل بيطلع بالبلاستيك كونتينرز، هي طريقه التسكير تبع البلاستيك كونتينرز بتجي اقوى من الكرتون واقوى من الشغلات هي، فبنحافظ على الاكل جوات العلب.
Residents of the United Arab Emirates have one of the highest volumes of waste per capita in the world. In the last 20 years, plastic production has doubled globally, and at current rates could triple by 2060. Currently, more than 90% of plastic is not recycled, with much of it dumped in nature or buried in landfills. A recent study found that 56 companies are responsible for more than half of the world's plastic pollution. The fifth and final round of UN talks to agree on a world-first treaty on plastic pollution is set to take place in South Korea in November 2024. Some nations want the treaty to restrict how much plastic can be made, while others, particularly oil and gas producing countries that provide raw materials to make plastic, want a focus on recycling.
Finally, an AI robot makes auction history with a record-breaking artwork at Sotheby's. It's not just the first time a humanoid robot has had its work sold by a major auction house, but the painting by the humanoid Ada has sold for $1.32 million at Sotheby's. The work, dubbed AI God, is a 7-foot-tall impressionistic portrait of the father of modern computing, Alan Turing.
My artwork is a portrait of Alan Turing, the brilliant British mathematician who laid the foundation for modern computing and artificial intelligence. The portrait has a fractured and layered quality, reflecting our current fragmented and multifaceted worlds. History has shown that technological advances can lead to both positive and negative consequences for humanity. I agree with Turing and with the United Nations that we must keep working for AI to be used for good.
And that's it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on top.